Well, welcome back to Spey Casting with Jon. I'm Jon Hazlett of the Ashland Fly Shop. And our first topic today is going to be what I call Spey CPR. Is your spey casting on the verge of death? Well, it might need some Spey CPR. Look, listen, and feel. We're going to cover that topic, Spey CPR, look, listen, and feel. Enjoy. Well, if you've ever taken a CPR class, you know that look, listen, feel is the order of importance. And with spey casting, to me, it's the same. To me, spey casting is very visual, and there's certain visual cues that give me clues, give me feedback as I'm making spey cast. And then second, what I hear, and it's mostly the good and bad sounds of spey casting, also gives me feedback. And then what I feel is third and the least important, because in reality it gives me the least amount of feedback, and I should have already seen it and heard it before I felt it. So that's kind of how I like to approach spey casting. And so a couple basic things about that would be A, anchor placement. Know where your anchor lands every time. So whether you're fishing a Skagit line like I have here, this is a Rio Skagit Max, just happened to be orange, but my first visual cue is what I call the golf ball, that connection between the spey line and whatever tip I have on here. In this case I have a 15-foot type 3, so this is what I call the golf ball. So for example, when I do a double spey after my lift and set, I want to know where that golf ball is every time. That tells me where my fly is. I know I'm in a safe spot. And as you probably know, when I set up a spey cast, I want my fly about a rod length off whatever side I'm casting. In this case, double spey is off my downstream side. So if I know where that connection is, what I call the golf ball, I know my fly is in the right spot. So that's my first visual cue. And then as I come around to make the cast, and I get here, and my D-loop is fully loaded, at that moment, when my line comes tight, right at that moment, when my line comes tight, I want to know how much sink tip is anchored and how much spey line is in my D-loop, okay? So that D-loop anchor relationship is something that I want to see every cast. You know, Mike McCune, Scott O'Donnell for years have said, be a watcher, you know, be a watcher. And you're looking for those little clues off to whatever side you're casting right at that moment. What's my anchor doing? What's my D-loop doing? But really, where your line enters the water, where my anchor enters the water, that tells me the whole story. And that's a whole other topic of interest. But that's a visual cue that gives me feedback. How much anchor is in, how much anchor is out, or spey line is out, which creates your D-loop. So that's my last visual cue. And then there's other things that happen on the cast that I like to see. But those are two basic things. Anchor placement, which is that connection between my spey line and my sink tip, okay? That's my golf ball. And then once I've formed a D-loop right here, how much is in and how much is out. And where my line enters the water, when my D-loop is formed, where my line enters the water, that's called point P. So I want to see point P every spey cast I make. That gives me feedback. That tells me some things as to what's happening. And then, excuse me, and then what do I hear, okay? We've all heard the good and bad sounds of spey casting. You have to identify what those are. So when I make a spey cast, I really don't want to hear anything, okay? I just want to hear that line sailing out there. Fish just rolled. So the good sounds are really the sound of silence. Simon and Garfunkel, sound of silence, okay? We've heard the bad sounds, okay? That whipping sound, that cracking sound, that's a bad sound, that's a blown anchor. Or the ripping sound of too much line stick. So when I make a D-loop, I'm going to make a D-loop here, right? My D-loop sags and I've got too much anchor stick. When I deliver that forward stroke, I hear that ripping noise. That's a bad sound. So those sounds give me feedback. The blown anchor sound and then the too much anchor stick sound. Those give me feedback. And so I would have actually seen that first. So if I've blown my anchor, I see it and then I hear it, okay? So I saw it happen, I heard it, and then a blown anchor cast feels kind of dead, okay? A good cast just feels good. So see it, hear it, feel it, those all give you feedback. And if you pay attention to all that, that'll make you a better caster and help you throughout your day.